questions about mobile classrooms, fourth grade, that kind of stuff. Yes?
Are there any plans to build some type of covered walkway from the mobiles to the building?
No, there's not. Actually, it was interesting you asked that question because I brought it up to the guys to put them in because what I wanted to see was they have modular areas where there's multiple classrooms that are enclosed, like there's only one way in, and then kids can move from class to class without having to go outside at all. And he said they probably, if they would have known in hindsight that we would have grown as large as we would have, they come in like it's a group of 10 like that, they would have probably given us that. They should have given us that and let us grow into it. But now that they haven't, it's kind of being piecemealed in. So I'm not aware of any school that has a covering over it, so it does become an issue when it rains. I give teachers tons of umbrellas, Washam umbrellas and stuff, but it's definitely a problem. Yeah. Now, luckily, they're close to the school, not like at Torrance Creek where they're like a half a mile, into a baseball field. But it's still. That's about the only time it's really a huge problem. Yeah. Good question. Anything else? Yes.
What happens like in weather situations, like last week with the tornado watch?
Well, that was on a weekend, or that was at night, but yeah, it wasn't there today.
I was wondering, but it was a watch. It wasn't like a warning.
We bring everybody inside,
and
which is going to be interesting. We actually were looking at it last week. We've been able in the past to absorb everyone, and we'll probably still be able to do it, but it's not going to be as nice as it was before. Because you can't be in rooms with windows, and you have to be, there's a lot of stipulations that we have to try to work on, but we practice that with the kids, so yeah, they'll all come in. All those kids will come in the building. Yeah, good question, though. Grouping's another question that typically comes up in these meetings. Just so everybody understands, I put it in the summer mailing, and I kind of explain what we're going to do, but not everybody reads all that stuff, so I kind of just explain it to you again. In K2, we have completely heterogeneous classes, meaning that we have mixed abilities in the classrooms, and the teacher will work on differentiating for those kids in those mixed ability classes. So you will see students at all levels within a regular classroom setting in K2. Once you get into third grade, we start to switch classes. And I know some people don't like that because it's too many teachers to deal with. Other people do like that because it better meets their child's needs. It's kind of depending on who you talk to. But the way we have it designed, in third grade we have 10 teachers, just to kind of give you an idea. I've broken it into 2 5-person teams. So on each 5-person team, there's certain teachers that are teaching math, there's certain teachers that are teaching literacy, everybody's teaching science and social studies, so they're going to rotate. And then we look at scores of how they perform on assessments in the classroom, how they're doing on their work, and then we start to group our kids based on their achievement levels on a particular skill. And then as new skills come up, we regroup our kids to make sure we're meeting their needs. So if a kid is struggling or doesn't show any mastery in a particular area, we may put him in a smaller or her in a smaller class setting to try to support that child and give them extra help. If we have a child that is really going above grade level, we put them in a situation where we're accelerating that child, making sure they understand the basic concepts, and we're going to accelerate. Talent development comes into class. So Ms. Hines, if your child is academically gifted or the TD program, she no longer is pulling you out of class because in K2 we had kids spread out everywhere. And now that they're in 3-5, they're grouped together for math and reading. She walks in and teaches with those classes in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So that is how we design 3rd grade. 4th grade is similar with 7 teachers. So they have 2 teachers teaching math, 2 teachers teaching reading, 2 teachers teaching science and social studies, and I actually have 1 teacher that's an additional math reading teacher to make our class sizes smaller. In 5th grade, we're grouping across the grade level. So in 5th grade, all the teachers are teaching reading, but we group across those 6 classes. All the teachers are teaching math, but we group across 6 classes. They share science and social studies. So meaning, if I'm paired with Miss McKelvey as a teacher, I'm teaching her class and my class science, she's teaching her class and my class social studies. So it's a little complex. I do it to try to make sure we're meeting all the kids' needs and trying to make sure we're reaching everybody we can do. But that's how we're doing it. 3rd grade is really not that different beyond how huge it is. It's just much bigger than everybody else. 4th grade is similar, but we played with it a little bit because we saw some things we didn't like last year. In regard to last year, we had 2-man teams and a 3-man team. We just didn't like the way it worked. 5th grade is exactly the same way as it was last year. So there's really no difference in 5th grade at all in regard to how we set it up. Questions about how we group? Yeah.
I'm concerned about when the parent-teacher conferences come up. I have a child in 5th grade because I'm just going to be meeting with a homeroom teacher that doesn't do the math or the writing. And
Well,
so I'm worried about overloading the other teachers that I really want to be meeting with.
yeah, and what we can do, and that is really the major issue with this type of grouping. You know, when you look at research and literature that's out there about it, it is the one big issue. It's a big issue for teachers too. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can attack it. And this is done in middle school as well. And you know, so there's models out there. You know, one model that you do is you meet with the homeroom teacher, but each of your other teachers give a little summary on your child. And then if you do want to meet, if you have a specific issue with math, say, you can always meet with that particular teacher and talk about math. But that's a model that some teachers use where they'll just share their data and then I'll share everything. This is how they're doing in reading, this is how they're doing in math, this is how they're doing in everything. There's others where all 3 teachers will try to meet as a team with the parent. That takes a heck of a lot more time. Some people do it though. So it is an issue, and you know, it'll be a work in progress. But if you have a particular concern with a particular subject area, by all means, talk to that individual teacher and work with that individual teacher on that. You know, that conference time is only one time during the year, that October parent conference, but beyond that, you're really working with individual teachers anyway. You know, again, if you're new to our system, in October we have a parent conference day. And then all of our teachers and parents are asked to meet at least once in October to come in and just talk about your child's progress. But then after that, the reality is you work with that specific teacher. If you don't have any concern with what's going on in science, social studies, or reading right now, and your focus is math, then that would be a relationship you would tighten up on versus maybe even worrying about the other classes beyond general communication. But it is definitely the big flag, no question about it. Basically, if a child has ADHD, they won't have an IEP, they'll have a 504 plan, which is just accommodations. But basically, each teacher at the beginning of the year is given a copy of the 504 plan, the homeroom teachers were, and a copy if the child has an individual education plan. They get what's called a snapshot IEP of a child, and they begin the process of dealing with that. In 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we have just started switching classes, in 3rd grade especially. So, you know, there may be some situations where the homeroom teacher hasn't completely shared that information with all 3 of the teachers yet. That will be taken care of. We don't also group all of our struggling students together in regard to kids that have IEPs. We try to put them more in classes in the middle so they have good role models around them. They have people that they can work with. You know, so it's not a situation where we just group all of our struggling kids together and forget about them. We try to really make sure we're meeting each of their needs. And then they work with the parents in regard to are they following through on the certain things. Just so people understand what the 504 is, if you have a child that has a diagnosed issue, for instance, ADHD is the most common one, you can get a 504 plan which allows for accommodations. And it really depends on the child which accommodations you go with. One accommodation would be modifying homework assignments. And the teacher would work with the parent to decide how much homework is enough for that child, depending on how long it's taking and things of that nature. Another one would be if a child struggles with paying attention when they take tests. Well, they may take tests in a separate room. You know, or they may need extra time because of that. So there's a lot of different things if children are struggling with that we work on in regard to making sure we accommodate those needs. And that is one of the ways we use our teacher assistant on the grade level. So for instance, if a class is testing and they have a group of kids that need to be pulled out to test in a smaller setting, that assistant on that grade level for 3rd, 4th, and 5th can do that. So good question. Anything else about grouping that I can answer? It's not as complicated as it sounds when you kind of explain it to people, but yes.
For 3rd grade, since they were going to switch this year, I as a parent would have preferred to have been able to meet the other teachers that my child is placed with. Because my son had somebody for the first 2 weeks, and then now it's all of a sudden switched, and we got the letter last Friday, which was the day after of the switch. You know, I would prefer maybe to be able to meet with those teachers, because I don't know if each teacher is going to teach exactly the same way, the same structure, and stuff like that.
Oh, so like they either have it done prior to curriculum night or mid-curriculum night later.
Right, that's what I was.
Okay, that makes total sense. All right.
Where fourth and fifth grade didn't.
No, we did.
No, third hadn't completed theirs yet. Fourth and fifth were ahead of it.
Right.
Right. Because of that, the reason is third grade doesn't have as much. The kids coming from second to third grade don't have as much data as some of the other kids have. If you're in school in North Carolina for third, fourth, and fifth grade, we have your third grade EOGs, we have your fourth grade EOGs, we can do some assessment in class, and we have a pretty good gauge of where a child is. If you're just moving from second grade to third grade, you've never taken any of those tests, so all the assessments are done in the classroom. So the teachers were taking a lot more time in individualizing the reading and things like that, so that's a good point. If a child is performing exceptionally well and the work is becoming too easy for them, that's a communication that either the teacher is going to start with you or the parent is going to start with the teacher, and they can look at making moves. So it's going to be done throughout, but it won't be like wholesale changes where you'll see like masses of kids switching classes. So your child's going to have 30 teachers in one school year. It'll be much more subtle than that. So yeah, absolutely. Anything else about the grouping stuff? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I wish there was like a key person I could go to, just one person for, like my son does have ADHD. And rather than rattle the brains of 3 teachers and a counselor and the administration, if there was one person, if the teachers could communicate, if there was one person that could track kids on 4 or 504s and IEPs, there was just one, I guess it's usually the guidance counselors, if there was just one person that could track them, then the teachers would focus more on what they're supposed to be doing instead of behavioral issues or, I don't want to be a burden to teachers, yet at the same time, I want my child to succeed.
Yeah, I guess you can use the counselor as your conduit if you want, or you can use the homeroom teacher as a conduit if you want. To me, to have everybody kind of on the same email and hearing the same thing, or be in the same conference is probably a good thing, because behavior ties into our instruction. If one's not okay, the other is going to be lacking as well. So it is something that's a little bit of a growing pain in regard to having to deal with multiple teachers versus K2. But I think in that case, if you use Ms. Robinette as your go-to person and say, can you share this with the teachers? I have a concern about this.
So work with the guidance.
I would think, if that's more comfortable for you, I don't think the teachers will mind. I think that would be fine.
I need a mediator.
I think that would be fine.
To work with the teachers.
I think that would be fine.
In my situation,
I think that would be fine.
I was going to say if there's special needs, don't they have a contact person there anyway?
If they're EC, yeah, they would have the EC teacher. Yeah, but I'm guessing because ADHD is probably just a 5 or 4.
Yeah, it's not like a major plan.
Okay. But no, it's a good question. Okay. Anything else about the grouping? All right. Hey, yes.
Do the teachers meet together? Like, don't the teachers have like a once a week they get together?
They team plan 3 to 4 days a week.
So they can have it.
Yeah. So, but if you share with the counselor, yeah, you can always do. Our teachers plan every day as a team, multiple days as a team to go over instruction in the classroom. We also have planning periods before school, once every 6 days, that we have assistants cover classes in each grade level, so teachers have planning in the morning. And then they also have team and individual planning once a month for each after school. So we have quite a bit of planning time where they should be communicating and talking about individual student concerns and things like that. We have added a math facilitator this year, if you're not aware of that. Ms. Jill Thompson used to be one of our 5th grade teachers. She is now our math science facilitator, and she basically worked with all K-5 teachers and some students in regard to helping support our math and sciences at our school. So she's another resources teachers have in regard to helping get information together, engaging more technology in the classroom. So that's a position we have added. So now I have a K-5 reading person, which is Ms. Lyons. She was our literacy facilitator. And I also have a math facilitator. Our size was just to the point where it was too large for one person to do all of that. So we have actually 2 people doing that now, which has become pretty commonplace throughout the system. But we finally did it. I was very much on the fence, but I finally did it at the end of the summer. Other kinds of good things going on. You saw our playground that our PTO put in last year. That's been a great addition, and it's really helped spread out our kids in regard to our playtime. If you're new, that's only the first phase of a pretty large project. We are actually trying to get funding. It's getting turned in today through the Jimmy Johnson Foundation in a grant to try to finish that off. In addition to adding an area for an outdoor classroom and 2 laptop carts, not laptops, but iPad carts. So we've got our fingers crossed. We'll find out about that before December. But our PTO and one of our parents has spent a great deal of time getting that organized for us. The Jimmy Johnson Foundation focuses specifically on schools, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is one of the systems that they focus on. So hopefully,
That grant.
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get through and get that. But that would make our project move much more quickly and help us with that. So that's been a new addition this year and something we're pretty excited about.